Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Wrestling with My Sanity. I am your host, Austin, and coming off another episode of Monday Night Raw, we will be reviewing that today. And in a few days here, probably Wednesday, so tomorrow or Thursday, I'll be dropping a Royal Rumble predictions for you guys. But we are covering Monday Night Raw from January 27th, so last night. And again, guys, I thought it was a good episode. We had the very first segment. We had Seth Rollins in the ring talking about the Royal Rumble. He had some crazy suit on. It was like a bunch of flowers all over it. He had some zest on it. It was a little bit sparkly with a bunch of nonsense going on. But he was talking about the Royal Rumble, how he looks forward to throwing, especially, he said, Roman Reigns over the top rope. And then Gunther's music hits. He comes down, talks about how he'll never win. He talks about Jey Uso, how he beat Jey once again. And then we get the return of the Maverick, Logan Paul, and the crowd goes mild. I don't know how you guys feel about Logan Paul. I think the general consensus is he is very talented in the ring. However, I think he kind of overstays his welcome in some people's eyes. I know he's got a very checkered past with the whole YouTube history and all of that, so... But regardless, Logan Paul comes out and officially he declares for the Royal Rumble. So we get another entry for the Men's Royal Rumble. And there are a couple funny segments, or parts of this segment, I should say, where Gunther was talking and Logan Paul declares he's going to win and come after Gunther. And then Gunther's like, you know what, Seth? I've changed my mind. I hope Logan wins the Royal Rumble match. And then he's like, so I can slap that stupid smirk off of your face. I think he said it weird, though. He's like, so I can slap that stupid smirk out of your face or something like that. Like, he phrased it kind of weird, but I thought it was funny. And then Seth agreed with him. And he's like, the only problem with that, Gunther, is I'm going to beat your ass, basically. So, very good opening segment there, guys. This went on quite a while. I mean, this was a good 25-minute segment. I started this at... watching it live on my lunch break at work, and then I damn near had to return from my lunch break by the time this was over. But good opening segment. They continue to hype up the Men's Royal Rumble, and it continues to be very unpredictable this year. So I am looking forward to that on Saturday. After this, we had a quick little backstage segment with Kathy Kelly, CM Punk, Sami Zayn, Karrion Kross, and Cody Rhodes. They were all kind of talking about the Rumble a little bit, and Sami Zayn ended up walking away, which we got another commercial break after that. And then the first match of the night we got was the War Raiders versus Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough. And this was for the Raw World Heavyweight Tag Team or the World Tag Team Championships, I should say. There's so many fucking different words to some of these titles, it's hard to remember what it is. You got the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, you have the WWE Undisputed Championship, it's fucking WWE Heavyweight Intercontinental Championship, all this nonsense, so... We had a World Tag Team Championship match here, guys, and this was a very good match, I thought, but the big thing coming out of this was the absolute freaking insane bump that JD McDonough took on that moonsault. So he was on the far end of the ring on the side of Pat McAfee, Michael Cole, and the Spanish announce table, and he hit a moonsault from, I think it was the middle rope there, and just the back of his neck absolutely whipped off of the announce table right in front of Michael Cole. And good on him for kind of making a big deal about it on commentary. And I think he actually got the ref to kind of come over and check on him pretty quickly because he was hurt pretty badly. And it did come out this morning, and I saw that he has a punctured lung and he did crack a few ribs. So he will be out of action for at least a few months, he said on Twitter. So... praying everything's okay with him. When you see something that scary, I mean, they kind of cut away from it on the live angle, and then they showed the replay, and the replay is where you could really see it, but his neck just snapped back over that table, and it looked brutal. So prayers out to him. Hope he's doing okay. Hope he recovers quickly. But this match was pretty standard. It went through a commercial break. They came back, and then the Judgment Day ended up getting hit with the finish of the War Raiders, and the War Raiders retain, so they are still our WWE World Tag Team Champions. And after this, guys, we had Pete Dunne, Ludwig Kaiser, The New Day, and Kathy Kelly. Pete Dunne was kind of walking backstage a little bit, and then he was talking about how things didn't go his way, and then The New Day tried to befriend him a little bit, and then both Pete Dunne and Ludwig Kaiser walk away. So And then Kathy Kelly interviews Kofi and Xavier for a minute. It's been some of the same things we've been getting from them, just their new heel shtick, all that nonsense. And then we move on to another commercial break. And then following that, we have Rey Mysterio with the LWO versus Xavier Woods, who has Kofi Kingston out there at ringside with him. So Rey Mysterio versus Xavier Woods here was pretty good. We did get an announcement during this segment from Michael Cole that Zelina Vega is moving to SmackDown now, which I honestly think is probably the best move right now for her. With SmackDown going to be 3 hours until probably, I think, June or so, they said, of this year, I think it's a good idea to move her over there. I've always thought Zelina's had a lot of talent on the microphone. Obviously, she's severely undersized, and that kind of holds her back a bit. I mean, she's not even the size of like a Liv Morgan or Alexa Bliss, who are already very, very small. But hell of a promo. I mean, she used to be very good on the mic as a manager, so maybe we get her with Andrade back on SmackDown. But with SmackDown being the longer show right now, and it will be going forward, as Triple H said, he wants Raw to be around 2 hours, 30 minutes or so. I think you move her over there and see what she can do because you have more time to waste on that program. So throw her on there, maybe give her a new direction and some new things to chase after because I know Zelina Vega has the potential. Cutting back to this match between Rey Mysterio and Xavier Woods, guys, the big thing out of this, Xavier Woods was kind of talking backstage about it a bit. He was talking about how it's his hometown, blah, blah, blah. This isn't Braun Breaker country. This isn't Cody Rhodes country. This is my country. And he's like, I'm going to have my family there in the first row. And they cut to ringside, and there's about 6 empty seats where Michael Cole's like, his family still hasn't showed up yet, but I mean, we don't know if they're going to show or they're not. And I'd say about halfway through the match, they do show up. And the big segment of this was he goes out to talk with his mom and dad, and they all reveal New Day Sucks t-shirts that they're wearing. And eventually Xavier, makes his way back to the ring. He does get caught with the 619, and he loses to Rey Mysterio after the distraction. So Rey Mysterio comes out on top here with the win over Xavier Woods. I'm enjoying this heel run, guys. I do want to see them start to do a little bit more with it, though. If you're going to turn these guys heel, I'd like to see them start getting wins a bit. I mean, I love Rey Mysterio, and I love the fact that he's in the Royal Rumble again. I fully know that nobody expects him to win, but I think we need to start having Xavier and Kofi pick up some wins here. So Rey Mysterio got a win on this. And then after the match, Rey Mysterio and the LWO kind of make their way over to Xavier Woods' family, and they were kind of celebrating with them a bit, which I thought was funny. And then when we come back from our next commercial break, we get Jey Uso and Quavo coming down to the ring. This was cool, guys. Jey Uso's entrance, always one of the best things about Jey Uso, in my opinion. Cuts through the crowd. We get the cool camera angles. He comes down. They're doing the Yeet celebrations. This lasted for, I want to say, like 4 minutes until they got down. They did it again on the announce table, and then, of course, Jay picks up the microphone, and he's winded. He's absolutely gassed, out of breath like he always is. And then he tells everybody basically about his loss on last Saturday at Saturday Night's Main Event to Gunther. But he said Seth and Gunther keep talking about him, and he will go on to win the Royal Rumble this Saturday, he plans on doing. And he said he's going to get another chance at that World Heavyweight Championship, and he will go on to WrestleMania to avenge this loss to Gunther. So we'll see, guys. As you know, on the last episode, I do not care to see that happen at all. I mean, Jay's had chance after chance after chance. He's 0-7 now when it comes to fighting for the big title. So if they end up somehow giving this to Jey Uso, that would be one of the few circumstances in the Rumble that I think would be a complete miss, where if you give it to him, the guy could have won fucking last Saturday on Saturday Night's Main Event on Peacock. So there's no point in Jey Uso winning the Rumble. But still, I like the fact that Triple H is making it a point to have all these different people, men and women from both shows, Raw and SmackDown, how he's making it a point to have them come out and talk about why they should win the Royal Rumble, why they have to win the Royal Rumble, their backstories, what they've been through before. I mean, there's been a couple already with Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, and Gunther. Obviously, we got Logan Paul has the reason to come out there and continue to cement his legacy. Rey Mysterio talked about it, how he won the Royal Rumble back in 2006. Obviously, John Cena's promo on the intro episode of Raw on Netflix was amazing, talking about how, I've been on this 2,000-day losing streak, all this other stuff, but he's like, if I can win the Rumble, that gives me one shot. And this is my last year. There is no next year for the Royal Rumble. There is no next year for the Elimination Chamber. So another great promo from Cena there, but he talked about why he should win the Royal Rumble. And all of these guys have compelling cases, guys. CM Punk came out, Drew McIntyre. Everybody has a compelling case to win the Rumble, which most years we don't. Most years you have your two, three guys. You can count on one hand almost every year in the Royal Rumble how many people have a legitimate chance to win. And I think that might be changing this year. But also, I left out Roman Reigns there, but we'll get on to that because there's a Paul Heyman segment here a little bit later into the show, so we'll cover that a little more in detail. But moving from the Jey Uso segment there, guys, we had a backstage segment again with Jackie Redmond. Lyra Valkyria was being interviewed here, talking about how she's going to be a fighting champion. And she also declares for the Women's Royal Rumble. So love that. I love the fact that we got her and Braun Breaker both declaring tonight. I love seeing the mid card champions declare for the Rumble because at the end of the day, guys, they're mid card champions, but also there's still something above that. They want the World Championship. Why not have the women's and men's IC titles and then still make a run at the world title? So good stuff here. Jackie Redmond, I want to give her flowers. I thought after Caleb Braxton left and they were kind of doing some shuffling around with the WWE announced team and backstage team, I thought Caleb Braxton was great, which I still do. But man, Jackie Redmond has really started to blossom here, guys. I think she's been great in what she's been doing. Her segment, what was it? Last week, I think it was, where CM Punk said he's going to win the Royal Rumble, where he was being interviewed out in the crowd by Jackie Redmond. Just her facial expressions, she really sells what these guys are saying. And I like the fact that she's not just there getting the microphone ripped out of her hand by these guys. She's actually holding it there, being interviewed. She's selling things with her face, which a lot of the interviewers don't do. Um, you could tell she comes from a sports background and she understands kind of what's going on, even though she's relatively new to the whole pro wrestling scene. But I just want to give her flowers because she has done a fucking awesome job, I think, in that backstage interview role. But Lyra announced for the Royal Rumble here, guys. One thing I do want to see coming out of the Royal Rumble, I do get that it's a big pay per view, obviously, one of the big four coming up here. However, we have not seen Lyra Valkyria in front of a a live crowd in 3 weeks now. The last 2 weeks, she's had little backstage segments. But guys, this is your Women's Intercontinental Championship. Let's not make a new belt and then all of a sudden don't have her on TV. That doesn't happen to Chelsea Green over on USA on SmackDown. She's on TV every week. And if she's not, she has a longer backstage segment. So I want to see Lyra getting matches. She needs to be fighting. I hope to see her this coming Monday when I'm at Monday Night Raw in Cleveland. I hope to see her live and in living color there. I don't want to see a little backstage segment. Let's start getting your young stars and putting them in front of the crowd. I get she isn't as over as some of your people, not even Braun Breaker yet, who's your men's intercontinental champion. But the only way you're going to get her to that point is having her in front of the people, talking more, putting on banger matches. That's how people are going to start to care about her. So I want to see her on TV more. So that's my one nitpick with that segment. Oh, and we get a little tease between American Made and the Alpha Babes or whatever they're called were there, where Otis and Tozawa are dancing while Maxine Dupree's kind of filming them on her iPhone. And he comes up and is like, "You idiots." He's like, "Those are the worst dance moves I've ever seen." He's like, "You guys are all embarrassments," and kind of walks off. So that's all we got to see of them for this episode. And then we get a tag match, which I thought this, guys, was probably my favorite match of the night. We had the women's tag team champions, Bianca Belair and Naomi, defending their titles versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez of the Judgment Day. And this I thought was a damn good match, guys. Went on pretty long, too. I thought they gave the women some good time here. And Raquel really started putting some work in here. At the very beginning, it kind of kicks off. Bianca runs in, immediately pulls Liv Morgan up for a KOD, but Liv gets out of it. And then Raquel ends up getting the tag in eventually, and she starts taking out some people. And then, of course, who interferes but Dirty Dominic Mysterio, who shows up to distract Bianca Belair after Bianca goes on a little roll there, taking out Liv and Raquel for a minute. And Dirty Dom shows up on the ring apron, distracts the ref. After Bianca is getting the pin on Liv Morgan, she takes a pretty damn good KOD, sells it pretty well. And then the crowd's doing their thing. They're chanting 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Bianca's looking around, doing the normal thing, like, what the hell? Where's the referee at? And then she sees Dom, hits Dom with the over the rope or over the top rope crossbody, which was funny. And then Raquel Rodriguez ends up spiking Naomi on the other side of the apron, rolling her into the ring, and Liv Morgan gets the pin. And I like this, guys. I'm not a huge fan of the concept of beating the champions to get a title match down the line. It kind of gives me flashbacks to the Vince McMahon era of Raw, where we would see number one contenders matches, but it wasn't even a contenders match where it would be one team versus another team fighting to get a tag title match. It would be the challengers facing the champions to get a chance at a title match, which I still don't love that. I don't love the fact that Liv and Raquel had to beat the champions to get a title match versus the champions. I would have liked to see you do some kind of like small tournament or even have them just be like, hey, here's two of the more over teams on Monday Night Raw women's division. Um, have them take out this other team to advance to become number one contenders. But the fact that we did get this match, it was a very good match, guys. My favorite of the night. And I do like the fact that Liv Morgan is still being booked strong after her loss to Rhea Ripley on the Netflix debut of Monday Night Raw. So I like that she's got a couple pinfall victories under her belt in the last 2 weeks, and I hope eventually maybe Liv and Raquel will take the belts off of Naomi and Bianca, because Bianca and Naomi are very much a team that was obviously a little bit makeshift because Jade Cargill got taken out by we still don't know who, but Bianca and Naomi and Jade Cargill, for that matter, whenever she does return, are all main event singles competitors, in my opinion. We do not need to have them constantly tied up in the tag division. It was fun for the little bit while it's lasted, but it's been going on for months now. So I would like to see eventually Bianca move back to singles, Naomi move to singles, um, and we'll see what we can do from there, guys. Because I would like to see eventually a Bianca heel turn, because that is not something we have gotten thus far on the main roster from Bianca Belair. She has been a babyface her entire career so far. So I would like to see something different from her, and I'm hoping down the line that Liv and Raquel will take the belts from them. After this, guys, we get a little video package of Penta declaring, saying he will be in the Royal Rumble. And I will touch on this too because Netflix cut this off in the United States, which I think is fucking stupid. But it was a pretty big segment. Braun Breaker's being interviewed in the backstage area, talking about how he's going to be in the Royal Rumble. He's going to run through everybody. He's like, everybody in this Royal Rumble, they're all senior citizens at this point. He's like, this isn't 2014 anymore, guys. He's like, who do you think is going to come in there and throw the badass Braun Breaker over the top rope? And then he goes, Atlanta, where my dogs at? And as he's saying that, you see him kind of look over, and Penta, El Zero Miedo, looks at him and kind of eyes up his IC title a bit. So huge moment there that I would love to get on the US version of Raw. They need to stop cutting out these good segments. I mean, the fact that you have to pay for Netflix, which is already more expensive than Peacock, plus we still got to pay for Peacock until the end of the year, until Netflix may or may not get the rights to the pay-per-views. So the fact that we're paying for this just to get segments like this cut off, I mean, Penta versus Braun Breaker, guys, is a big fucking deal. And this is a match that could happen at WrestleMania. So, a great segment, I thought, there, but I would have loved for Netflix to actually air the damn thing. So, we'll see if this continues to be an issue moving forward. I hope not, but it's looking like it might be. After this, we get Paul Heyman in the ring. It kind of walks to the ring without any entrance music or anything, which I like because then you get a genuine crowd reaction, and they weren't expecting him. The camera just cut back. Michael Cole's like, well, look who it is. You could hear the crowd kind of popping a bit there for him, but Paul Heyman walking down to the ring declares that Roman Reigns and him are on the cover of the new WWE 2K25 video game, and they dropped the banner, which I actually thought the cover looks pretty cool. I'm not stoked that Roman's on the cover. I mean, he was already on the cover a couple years ago with Becky Lynch, so he's been there, done that. I would have liked to get somebody new in there. I mean, we have so many fresh talents. I wouldn't even have mind. Like, I loved last year's Bianca's and Rhea Ripley. I wouldn't have minded like a Tiffany Stratton or somebody this year. I get she's not a superstar yet to the level of a Roman Reigns who's been around for years and years, but I would have liked somebody new on the cover. But for the design they went with, it was pretty cool. Roman Reigns had his fist down on the mat with Paul Heyman doing his little hands together pray salute thing to him in the corner, which I thought was cool. So at least the picture and image we got of them was cool. So that was neat, guys. And he talked about that, how it's a huge Obviously, a huge deal to be on the cover. How Roman Reigns is the biggest superstar, not only here, but in the world. He says if Elon Musk goes on to colonize Mars at some point, he'll be the biggest star there, too. Just over the top Paul Heyman antics like we normally get. And eventually, um, after Paul Heyman's done gassing up Roman Reigns and talking how it's 1 versus 29, how all these other 29 guys in the Rumble stand no chance. Again, good job at Triple H by making it seem like anybody can win this Rumble. Drew McIntyre comes out and he kind of goes back and forth with it a little bit. And Drew tells Heyman that he looks kind of nervous. He tells Heyman that it pains him, but the original daddy of the bloodline is Drew McIntyre. He says he hates it, but when he won the 2020 Rumble, he eliminated Roman Reigns, and then he went to the main event and then went on his long, long title run, obviously. So a little callback there that I thought was pretty cool. He says at one point, Paul Heyman actually, Drew's kind of crowding him in the corner, and Paul Heyman's like, he's like, Drew, you're crowding me. He's like, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually he gives him his word that he being Paul Heyman, will tell Roman Reigns that he plans on beating him within an inch of his life, basically. And Drew McIntyre's like, no, 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 no. He's like, not that guy of yours. He's like, I'm talking about CM Punk. So we're gonna get some definitely some beef again between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in the Rumble match, which I'm looking forward to. There's a lot of interweaving stories, I think, in this year's Men's Rumble that you're going to see some cool segments, I hope. I hope there's some good spots in this match because there's a lot of tension between a lot of different guys in this match. And I think depending on which way they go, this could be one of the better Royal Rumbles we've had in the last 10, 15 years, guys. So good segment. Eventually, Heyman takes off and Drew stays because the next match we have is the main event between Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn. And this was a good match, guys. This was probably my second favorite match of the night, I'd say. It was a good one. Sami Zayn got a beating. He hit the Blue Thunder Bomb, which Drew kicked out of. Don't like that. I'd like to see it more as a finisher. But Sami Zayn, partway through the match, ended up getting clobbered pretty good, and he got a good gash on his nose. So he was bleeding pretty well from that. It always looks cool when people get blood the hard way and don't bleed because it makes the match look that more intense. But at first, I was looking and it looked like he had a really bad nosebleed because he rolled out to the ringside a little bit and blood was pouring on the ground, and I'm looking at his face and I'm like, it looks like he's just got a massive nosebleed. But nope, he had a pretty good little gash there on his nose. And then Drew kicked out of the Blue Thunder Bomb. Zayn hit a Tornado DDT and he kicked out of that. And then Drew ended up going for the Claymore at one point, and Sami Zayn ducked, and Drew landed on the announce table. That was a pretty brutal sequence where you could see Drew was eyeing him up from the side camera angle, and then he flew and just landed straight on the announce table, which was pretty funny. Then we go to a commercial break. We come back, guys. Drew hits Sami with a spine buster, then Sami kicks out. And then we had quite a bit more back and forth. And then eventually Drew rolls up Sami and then puts his feet up on the bottom ring rope to cheat to get to 1, 2, 3. And then Drew McIntyre, in typical Drew McIntyre form, ends up beating the holy hell out of Sami Zayn after the match ends. And then Cody Rhodes runs down, saves him. And then out of nowhere, we get Kevin Owens taking out Cody Rhodes because they're still hyping up that big storyline between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens coming up at the Rumble for the 2 belts. And then after that, when he gets his cheeks taken out, Cody's in the corner and Drew's kind of holding him there. And then he moves out of the way at the last second and Sami Zayn flies in and hits Cody with a haluva kick in the corner. So 2 weeks in a row now, and Seth Rollins mentioned that 2 weeks in a row now, where Sami Zayn has kicked somebody that he's supposed friends with. Obviously on accident, it looks like to us, but it happened to Seth last week, happens to Cody this week. And then when we come back from the short little break, guys, we do get Cody Rhodes in the ring, talking about how he's going through a lot. He said it's not about the belt himself. He's like, but what makes a true champion is obviously the person that has the belt and your work ethic being the first one in, the last one out kind of thing. And then he's hyping this match up. He wants to really move on past Kevin Owens once he wins at the Royal Rumble. And then suddenly CM Punk's music hits. And I am going to be gassing this up to no end, guys, because I thought this segment was freaking incredible. Um, Granted, we're only a month into 2025, but this easily for me is the promo slash segment of the year thus far. This went on quite a bit. I know some people thought it was a little awkward at some points just because the crowd wasn't reacting, but being as someone who's been to a lot of events, guys, I've been to pay-per-views, I've been to probably close to a dozen Monday Night Raws and Friday Night SmackDowns. I've been to Dynamites, I've been to Collisions. Um, I think this was very much a case of the crowd just being that tuned into what people are saying. I mean, I've seen a few CM Punk segments now when he was feuding with MJF and AEW, and even last year when there was a little tease between Seth Rollins and Punk before Punk got hurt. Um, it's the when Punk is talking, guys, and Seth Rollins. I mean, he cooked too, but when Punk is talking and there's really investing storylines going on, really interesting, I should say, not investing. That's not even doesn't fucking make sense. But really interesting storylines going on. People are interested and they're just sitting there listening to what they're saying, guys. Like I'd rather this than people just chanting what a billion times when two guys are trying to talk and talk about a main event angle. So I thought this was great. The only thing I did think was a little awkward in the delivery was at the very end when they were talking and Punk went to grab Cody. He kind of went to grab him by the collar and missed his collar. So that I thought was a little bit awkward. But at the end of the day, it's live television. I mean, you're going to have small mistakes like that. And at the end of the day, him missing Cody Rhodes' collar isn't the big deal. The big deal is the promo we got out of this, where Punk talks about Cody Rhodes. He's like, "Hey man, it's the end of the day. I'm your friend." He asks Cody if he's okay. He's like, "Are you okay, man?" He's like, "This seems to be weighing on you." He's like, "I've been through there, or I've been through this before." He's like, "With my big long 400 plus title day reign, after 300 days, it really did start to wear on me, and I noticed that." He's like, "You're reaching that point where it's been almost a year at WrestleMania where he's had the belt. I can see it starting to weigh on you a bit." And CM Punk is kind of like just talking about Cody, how he cares about him and all that. And then he's like, he's like, "I am your one true friend." He's like, because he's like, I'm gonna tell it like it is to you, basically. And he said, Cody Rhodes is like, "So what's next for me then?" He's like, if this is all there is to it. And he's like, "Well, I'll tell you what's next." He's like, "In the short term, you're going to go home." He's like, "You're in your hometown tonight. You hopefully get to sleep in your own bed." Or he's like, "Maybe you won't sleep at all because you have early call in the morning. You got to go do media. You got to do press for all these events." He's like, "Maybe you won't get to sleep at all." And he's like, "You know what?" He's like, "If, and that's a big if you make it past Kevin at the Royal Rumble, then you got SmackDown, then you got Raw." And he's like, "Eventually, this is just going to keep going on until you get to a point where there's a superstar that's working harder than you, that's getting more buff than you, that they're on the up and up and you're on the down. And eventually somebody's going to catch you at that point where you're on the down, they're on the up, and they're going to take that title from you." And then Cody's like, "Oh, is that true?" He's like, "Okay." He's like, "If that's the good news, then what's the bad news?" And CM Punk's like, "Well," he's like, "The bad news, Cody, the bad news is that somebody is me." And everybody is like, "Whoa." I mean, that was one of like three or four little interesting tidbits in this promo where it was like, oh shit, mic drop moment there. But very awesome stuff there. And then Cody really tells him, he kind of like seems very distraught throughout this. I mean, this almost seems like a little Cody Rhodes heel action we're getting. But Cody is like, he's like, "I appreciate you telling me that." And he's like, "I hope you do win the Rumble because at the end of the day," he's like, "I will take out anybody in my way." He's like, "Whether it's you," he's like, "anybody, it doesn't matter." And Punk, another really good line I thought Punk had here was, he's like, Cody, he's like, "I'm going to win the Rumble." And he's like, "I'm not going to come at you from some random direction." He's like, "I'm still your friend." He's like, "And as your friend," he's like, "I'm not going to stab you in the back. I'm going to stab you in the front." And I'm like, oh shit. Another mic drop moment. And then Cody went on and gave a little backstory about when they were younger and in OVW training. And Punk was the one kind of everybody looked up to, old chick magnet Punk back in the day. Everybody wanted to be CM Punk so bad. And then he's like, "You know what, Punk, at this point," he's like, "Yeah, I'm not chasing you. You're chasing me." And that was another cool mic drop moment there. And then he does tell Punk that he hopes he wins the Royal Rumble because he wants Punk to catch up. And then that's when the little awkward like grabs happened where CM Punk grabbed Cody and he's like, "No, no, no, I'm not done yet, blah, blah, blah." CM Punk's like, I went on, he's like, in my past to leave a graveyard of careers behind me. And Cody's like, you know what? After he grabs Punk, he's like, I want you to catch up. He's like, because he's like, I want you to win and I want to beat you. He's like, because I want you at the end of the day to know, he's like, the best in the world is not the best in the world anymore. And that was a hell of a way to end this promo segment, guys. And we had, I thought, some really good emotion between these two of the best promos in the business. Punk, one of the best promos of all time. And if Cody Rhodes keeps this up, guys, the more serious stuff where he's not laying into the theatrics and stuff as much, I think he can continue to have a hell of a title reign. I mean, I like when Cody Rhodes gets serious. His facials sometimes are a little weird and like awkward, but if he can continue to do what he did tonight, and even like the last promo he had with Kevin Owens on Saturday night's main event, where he's like, enough, and he bows up and starts screaming at Kevin Owens in front of Shawn Michaels. If we get more of that, Cody, where it's like bordering on heel but not quite heel, um, I think we're in for a hell of a ride here, guys, at the Royal Rumble, and then potentially at coming out of that into WrestleMania. I wasn't thinking about CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes being on my radar, but after this promo segment, man, I mean, I kind of want that match. They've done a good job of that with a couple things. With the Sami Zayn segment a couple weeks ago, like they got me hyped for Sami to win the Rumble, and now I almost want CM Punk to win it, to get one of those one-off matches between two baby faces like we had with Rock and Cena, then we had with Hogan and The Rock back in the day, where it's just two big stars having a big one-off match at WrestleMania. So that could be the way they go, guys. I don't know. We'll get more into that on my Royal Rumble predictions, but this was a hell of a segment. I mean, my favorite of the year thus far, and I hope we continue to build onto this going into the Rumble. We have one more show in Friday Night SmackDown. We have NXT tonight, so we'll see if anybody debuts, or not debuts, but declares, excuse me, for the Royal Rumble this Saturday that's in NXT. I imagine they'll probably keep most of that under wraps and just have them as surprises. But interesting stuff here, guys. I did notice one thing. This is my first ever show coming up this Monday, live show that I'm going to be at in Cleveland, Ohio, that they have not announced any matches for that show yet. And it's interesting to me because I think it's more so because of the Royal Rumble being this Saturday. So I don't think they want to give away any winners of title matches, or if they schedule a Braun Breaker versus a freaking Roman Reigns or a Jey Uso or something, like they're not going to give away two guys who have a chance to win the Rumble. And even if they're not like super high up on that list to win the Rumble, they're not going to give away the finish of the match. So it'll be interesting. I have no idea what to expect going to Raw next Monday, but I will still be reviewing the show for you guys. Obviously, I will probably see it live and then rewatch it again Tuesday morning before I get the episode out for you guys. But I thought another good episode of Raw, guys. The build for the Rumble continues to be very good. In typical Monday Night Raw fashion, there's like 1 to 2 good matches, and the rest are kind of just average. But it's really about the build for the Royal Rumble and heading into WrestleMania season at this point. So let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you sticking around and listening to the video, and I will see you guys in a few days for Royal Rumble predictions. Austin out.